Hi guys, good evening everybody. So can you hear me? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Uh, please mention in the comment section if you all can hear me. Hi Ashish, thanks for joining. So Jaykant is saying title में चेस्टक पर जितेंद्र आत्वानी कहाँ है? Uh, Jaykant, who is Jitendra? माउस पॉइंटर का एरर है. Is there any problem? You're not able to see this? Jaykant, I don't understand your reference about this, about the statement that you have done. Whereas, can you all see the screen? Is there a lag? Oh, okay. I don't know why I'm getting this error. Yeah, I've increased the volume. I've not. Can you all hear me now? Can you all hear me? Or is there any problem? Yeah, Pulak, there's some background noise. Let me try to do that. Okay. Okay, thank you. So today's topic is chess talk. Basically, I thought we'll discuss some recent events that has happened in the past week and try to analyze some games. Okay. Okay. I hope you can see the screen. I don't know if there is an error. Everything looks fine on my side, but okay. Anyway, so yesterday there was a very big event that has happened. It is the Super Swiss qualifier for the speedchess.com speed chess event. Okay, this main speed chess event where the top grandmasters like Nakamura, Hikaru, and a lot of top grandmasters participate there. And for that, as a qualification event, there was a speed chess Swiss event where all the title players had the opportunity to participate. And I thought let's see what happened yesterday. We'll just go through some games that has been there in this website, chess.com website. So finally Wesley so came first, but there's still I I think a knockout event or something like that uh, today. So yeah, obviously, so news, but no board. No, I mean I haven't. I'm not yet introduced the board yet. I'm just going through this. So I don't know if there is any error. Why you can't see my screen there? The chess.com thing that I have opened. Why is this happening? Just give me a minute. Let me just. Yeah, everything looks fine on my end actually. Yeah. Okay. It has to do with something with YouTube probably. I don't know. Okay, so it says So and Nakamura eventually finished in first and second place, and yeah, there's this game between Wesley and Koushik. Gautam Wesley won the event. He came first, and the good news for Indians is Prague also got selected for today's knockout event. I think it's top 16 event. Yeah, the top 16 players are going to play the knockout event today. So yeah, Prague also got qualified for that. I think he is the only Indian to qualify, and Wesley so came first. Uh, Again, can't see also. Mouse arrow is going crazy. I don't know, Gautam. I don't know why this is happening. Anyway, let's try to go through this game. I just hope you can see the board. Otherwise, yeah. Okay. So, can you see the board now? This game between Wesley and Grishuk. Gaurav, yes, I am from Bangalore. Yes. Okay. So if you can see the board, let's just go through this game briefly. Oh man, why is this happening? It's all happening on its own actually. I'm not changing. I'm not even changing anything. Okay, let's hope the board is now visible. So it was a Sicilian opening, and the game went on with an early deviation from Wesley. He played f3. Okay. Panali is here. Hi, Panali. I'm getting this error. I don't know why. The board is not visible for the viewers, it seems. I don't know for what reason that's happening. Again, it's happening. Oh. Click. Try down. Show it on chess space. Oh. So you're saying it's a problem with the I just wanted to show the games on chess.com, you know. Why? Okay, let's try now. Can you see the screen? Okay, let's just hope that error does not happen again. Okay, so this is how the game continued. Yeah, f3 is actually is one of the array deviations for white here. Usually white plays knight c3 here. White plays knight c3, but he continued f3 here. And after e6, c4, knight c6. So basically the pawns on c4 and e4, they are known as the Morakzib bind. The idea is to get complete control over the center, and especially the d5 square. Black will not be able to push d5, and if he is not able to do that, then the pawn on d6 will remain a weakness. So that's the idea behind playing this system. Okay, so this is how the development continued. Knight c3. Okay, and here Koushik played a6. He could have also played d5 here, which is very interesting. Trying to open the center, since white's king is still in the center, and white may or may not go for long castling here. So this was one of the options, going for immediate opening of the center. So after he takes long castle, knight b4, queen d2, rook e8, a3, a5. Wow, this is a very nice sacrifice. So if you take on b4, then goes with a takes b4, and this rook gets open along the a5, and suddenly there'll be a lot of mating threats and so on. So that's the idea, and the game continued something like this. So g4, bishop d7. So black just keeps that knight on b4 as long as white doesn't want to take that knight, because if you take, then it opens the a file and white will be in a lot of trouble. So this actually happened in a game between Wesley and Vasya Lagrave. I think it was in it should be in some event this year. So Wesley is again on the white side of this position. So this time Koushik didn't go for this d5 here. Instead he went with a6. So a6 is it's like it's an important move, because black wants to play queen c7 next, and he doesn't want to be harassed with this knight b5 and all such tricks. The game continued. Long castle, knight takes, bishop d7, king b1, queen b8. So black is aiming for b5 here in this position, and after c5, very interesting move. So if black goes for d takes c5 here, then there is bishop takes f6, and white will win this bishop on d7. So that's the idea. So he goes bishop c6, which is a very logical move. C takes, bishop takes. Luckily the queen on b8, it's creating this battery along with this bishop on d6. Otherwise e5 would have resulted in black losing a piece between the bishop on d6 and the knight on f6. So he goes g3, bishop e5, bishop takes, queen takes, f4. Okay, so white wants to develop his bishop to g2, and next he is planning to play e5. Go for the bishop trade, and then put your knight on e4, and then probably d6 or g5. So that's the idea. Goes e5, knight d5. So white is happy with the queen trade. He goes for that, and here Koushik went for the bishop trade. Bishop takes d5. Instead, I think it was also possible for black to play rook f8. That's very interesting, because you might say that there is this knight c7, knight fork, but I think that's not happening, because you have bishop takes e4 check and then rook a c8. Can you see that? That's a very nice tactic there. If white plays knight c7 here, there is actually bishop takes e4 check, and after bishop takes e4, there is rook a c8, and now white loses the knight on c7. So this was, I think, was a slightly better alternative for Koushik here. And after rook h1, guarding the e4, he could have played king f8. Still with the same trick, if you still try to play knight c7, there is bishop takes e4 check and rook a c8. So the king on c2, it's not in a good square there. It's just sitting along the line of fire. But instead, Koushik continued with this bishop trade. So bishop takes d5, e takes d5, takes on f4, and then rook c8 check, king b3, rook f d8, d6, king f8, d4. So white cannot take on b7 here because of the pin. So if bishop takes b7, there is rook b8, and he'll lose the bishop, right? So plays rook d4, and so white is planning to play rook a d1, and then probably he'll take on b7, because then after rook b8, white has rook b4. That's the idea. So rook c5. So again, now if you take on b7, there is rook b5 check, and if you play rook b4, he'll exchange. He'll go for the rook trade, and then he'll again play rook b8. So eventually, white is losing the piece, losing the bishop. Goes a4, b6, rook hd1, and then yeah, I played g6, bishop f1, goes b5. Yeah, he could have also played a5, but then the bishop comes and sits on b5, which is very annoying for black, because from there it can, you know, guard the pawn on d7, and, you know, and white can try for all this queening tricks, like, you know, putting the rook on e8 and all. So just played b5, a5, h5. Okay, this was just normal moves. So knight g4, attacking the pawn on h2, and also at the same time threatening to play knight e3 and trade the knight for the bishop. So that's the idea. So white is not worried about the h2, because he wants to take the a6 pawn. Knight e3, d3, knight c4, king b4, guarding the a5 pawn, and attacking the rook on c5. So rook f5. Now he takes, knight takes, rook c3. So now it's very difficult for black to defend the pawn on b5, and more importantly, the knight on b2 is in a very bad position actually. Now it should have been somewhere on e6 or somewhere, but here this is not at all a good square. So knight c4 is the only move to improve the knight's position. And d7, g5, bishop takes. I think the knight is trapped now. Yeah, knight is trapped. Anywhere it goes, white is just going to capture it. So plays knight takes a5, which just gives up the knight and takes this pawn on f4, but it's already game over after rook c8. Because now if he plays king e7, there is a rook e4 check, and white just takes the rook. So yeah, so Wesley played a very nice game actually, a very positional game, and won the game. What about any other top interesting games? Okay, there was, you know, a lot at stake, a lot of cash prizes and everything. Okay, and there's some interesting game here, I think. Okay. So in this position, white played f4 here. You know, he ran into a mating trap actually. Instead, he could have played something like rook h8 check. It would have been, I wouldn't say completely. Yeah, he's winning the bishop. Yeah. So king goes to g6, then you just take the bishop on h3. It would have been totally fine. But instead, he played f4 here, and black also missed this. That's very surprising. That is, f6 was a checkmate, mate in one. But black completely missed this and played bishop g2. And now after rook h8 check, black should have played king g4 at least, but went back to g6, and after f5 was a very nice checkmate. So that's interesting. Yeah, so it was a nice mating net. Anyway, let's go back. Also wanted to analyze some games from the Junior Speed Chess Championship between Sarana and Savian. I think that happened day before yesterday. Yeah. Hi Tarang, thanks for joining. So eventually, Sarana defeated Savian with a score of 13.5 to 11.5. It was a very close match actually because both were approximately equal in strength. Both are I think around 26-20 or 26-30 in classical ELO rating. So it was a close match, but Sarana played very well actually, and he defeated Savian. So according to chess match prediction, chess.com had predicted that Savian is going to win with a score of 13.5 to 12.5. But eventually it was Sarana who won 13.5 to 11.5. So you can see that. Okay. We have this interesting game. Let's just go through this game. You can see the screen, right? You can see my screen. Yeah, unfortunately, I cannot make arrows or anything in this. Actually, I have to go to the either to the chess base or to I think a chess.com game window, but then I cannot access these games there. So anyway, I'm trying to explain all the moves here. So yeah, Mishanik is Alexis Sarana and Konowitz is Sam Savian. So Sarana is white in this game. So this is the popular Nimzo Indian opening, and it is this variation, this E4 short castle E4, it's a very short variation in the Nimzo Indian, and there is a lot of tactics and traps are involved. So both sides should be very careful to not fall into any trap. 5 knight e4, bishop d3, c5, knight f3, c takes d4. So all these are theory. So I'm sure both the players had prepared something in this line. So and they were literally blitzing out all the moves. Bishop f4, queen h4, g3. So black is planning to take on e5 next. Knight takes e5. So white just goes short castling here. So if now white got rid of this pin along the a5 e1 diagonal. So if black takes on e5, it is just going to recapture on e4 next. So that's the idea. So he goes g5. So black wants to make sure the bishop is away from f4, so that after knight takes e5 there is no exchange, and also knight g4 and all those mating threats are possible. So that's the reason black is playing g5 and c takes d5. Very interesting. So white doesn't want to waste time moving the bishop away from f4 and giving black the opportunity to play knight takes e5, knight g4 and so on. So white goes with c takes d5. Now the knight on e4 is hanging. So if black takes on f4, white takes on e4 with the bishop probably. So in the game, black just played g takes f4, but it was also possible to go with bishop takes c3, and after b takes, e takes d5. It's important to keep that knight on e4. Bishop e3. Now knight takes e5, f3, knight takes, queen takes, and knight c5. There's queen d2. So I think queen c2, queen g6 also occurred in game 10 of the same match. So queen d2, h6, g4, very interesting. So if white doesn't play g4, then black might probably put his bishop on h3 and then follow up with something like f5 and f4. So he will be going for a full pawn storm on the king side. So he goes g4, queen g6, knight f5. Okay, so bishop takes e5. So you shouldn't take on f5 here, because if you go g takes f5, black will probably play queen c6, and white's structure is completely ruptured. Dakshi says some glitchy sound in background. I don't know, Dakshil. everything else is muted here. It's just my voice only. There are no other there are no other noise in the background actually. Anyway, let me know. Let me know if others are also facing the same issue. So bishop takes c5, attacking the rook on f8 and the bishop on f5. So if black tries to move the rook to e8 or c8 anywhere, white will just take the bishop and attack the queen, and then he will retreat the bishop back to d4. So black goes for counterattack. He obviously isn't interested in giving up the piece. So he plays bishop d3, and after bishop takes f1, bishop takes f8, bishop takes f1, bishop takes h6, and queen takes h6, rook takes f1, rook d8. This actually occurred in game 12. So this is what is mentioned here. Okay, so going back to this position, after g takes f4, so in the game, black didn't go for bishop takes c3, but it was played in other games. So there was a lot of preparation involved this position. So here he played g takes f4, and after d takes e6, very interesting. So white is not taking on e4 here, but instead is going for d takes e6, attacking the other knight on d7. And after knight takes c3, and here in this game white played e takes d7, but b takes c3 was also possible, and this was played in game 2. So f takes g3, h takes g3, knight takes e5. So black is forced to give one minor piece or the other. I mean, he cannot defend all of them, so he just goes with knight takes e5, c takes b4, bishop takes e6, knight takes e6, knight f3 check. It already looks very dangerous for white, but luckily there is no mate. For example, if black had another minor piece or a pawn on g4, this would have been a checkmate after queen h2. But since black does not have another minor piece, this is just going to be a draw. Knight h4 check. So if you take on h4, if you go g takes h4, then there is queen g4 check, and you just start giving checks there. So it would be a perpetual check. So it goes king g1, and after knight f3 check, king g2, knight h4, king g1, knight f3 was ended in a draw in game 2. So in this game, I think it was in game 4, the position which we are analyzing is game 4. White continued e takes d7. He didn't go for b takes c3, but he continued e takes d7. And after f takes g3, h takes g3, bishop takes d7, b takes c3, rook a c8. Nice pin along the c file. Bishop takes h7 check. Okay. So if black takes on h7 with the queen, if black plays queen takes h7, that is queen takes h7 check, king takes h7, and then c takes b4. So white will be, I think, 2 pawns up. So that's huge material, and already we are into endgame, so there cannot be any mating threats against the white king. So that's the idea. So obviously black doesn't want to take. He plays king g7, and now e6. Now this looks like a very interesting move actually. So probably he just wants to rip open black's position again, near his king. So f takes e6. So if black plays bishop takes e6, white will just take on e6 with the knight. He wants to take that bishop so that there are no more threats along the a8 h1 diagonal. So because if bishop comes to c6 here, there can be a lot of mating threats. So white wants to get rid of that bishop. So he goes f takes e6, and here Alexei Sarana played queen d1. So instead, I think queen e2 would have been a better square here, because after queen takes h7, he's anyway going to go with c takes b4, and if black tries to do anything like rook h8, there is always these checks. So there's queen e5 check, there is queen g4 check, right? With the queen on d1, there is only queen g4 check, so it's better to have this option of playing queen d5 check as well. And also, it doesn't interrupt your rooks, they are always interconnected. So queen takes h7, goes c takes b4, and black goes e5. So this was the problem. So see, if the queen was on e2, e5 would not have been possible for black there. White would have just captured that pawn. But now the knight has to move away, and this gives rise to the opportunity for black to put his bishop on c6. which is very dangerous. If the bishop comes to c6, there is mate on h pawn, and there are a lot of other threats. The bishop can also come and sit on f3 there, with the knight no longer on this central square. So he plays knight f3. If he had played knight e2, then there's bishop c6 with a mating threat, and if you play f3, then there's rook h8. And after king f2, there's rook c d8, attacking the queen, queen c1, and then queen f5. So queen f5 is important because white is planning to give a check on g5 here. So by playing queen f5, black is not only threatening queen takes f3 check, but also rook h2 check at the same time. So it is very difficult. It is a very difficult position for white here. And also this rook on d8, it is coming to d3 and it's going to take on f3, right? So it's there are a lot of threats and too many to parry for white here, and probably I think white is already lost here. So this was going to happen if he had played knight e2, but then in the game he played knight f3 here. Pulak is asking what is the time control in these games. So there are 3 time controls, Pulak, here. So the first time control is 5 plus 1, 5 minutes plus 1 second increment. Then there is 3 plus 1, 3 minutes plus 1 second increment. And the final time control is 1 minute plus 1 second increment. So these are the 3 time controls for this Junior Speed Chess Championship in each match. So I think 5 plus 1 is going to be for 1.5 hours, and 3 plus 1 for 1 hour, and 1 plus 1 for 30 minutes. That's how they distribute the timing, so that they get as many games as possible, right? Dara is asking, so where is Professor? I don't know. He is not here today. I mean, he might be having his own stream at some other time. I'm not sure about that, Dara. So white played knight f3 and black played bishop g4. Now suddenly this spin it's very annoying. I mean, how will you get out of that? There's no way to get out of that. So he plays knight g5. Luckily the queen on h7 can be attacked. So he plays knight g5. So if black takes on d1, white is just going to recapture on h7. So black plays queen h5, and now plays knight e6 check. It was also possible to play queen d2 here, but after queen d2, I think black continues with rook h8. And I don't see any way for white to stop this mate on h2 and h1, right? I think it's a forced checkmate. So white played knight e6 check, and after king f6, played queen d6. So anyway, both the knight and queen are under attack. So plays queen d6, and now black doesn't have the time to play rook h8 because of knight f4 check and discover check, and he'll just take the queen. So he goes. So black just takes the knight, and now white is pretty desperate now. He wants to try and do something. So he plays f4. He wants to open the file against the black king. Then queen g4. Very simple. So if white plays f5 here, then he'll take on g3 check, and then king h1, then rook h8 is a checkmate, right? And if he takes on f5 with the pawn, then there is king g6. So king g6, and there are no more checks. I mean, you can give a check on d3, but then the king can just go back to g7. And there are no checks, and this bishop and queen, they are doing a great job, blocking all the squares where white can give the check. So queen g4 is a very nice move. So white goes queen, takes e5 check, and after king g6, plays queen e3. So if you play f5, he's just going to recapture with the bishop. Bishop takes f5, that's all. So queen e3, bishop f5, rook a d1. Just want to play rook d6 check next. Plays rook e8, check. Black goes for the exchange, rook e6, takes, bishop takes, rook e1, rook c1, and now rook e8, king f2, queen f5. So black was actually planning to play queen h2 check here. Queen h2 check, and then probably go with bishop f7 or something like that. So white played queen e4 check, queen f5, queen takes b7. So if you exchange the queens, it becomes very easy for black to convert this position. He has an extra piece. White has 2 pawns as compensation, but that is not at all sufficient here. So he needs more. So he just goes and grabs this pawn on b7. And here black played bishop d5. Instead, queen d3 would have been a better move, because now there is queen d2 check here. winning the rook on c1, and also the bishop can come to g4 at some point of time, and there can be a lot of meeting threats. So queen d2 check is the main threat, and it's very difficult for white to defend against that. So it was bishop d5, queen a6 check, rook e6, and here he plays queen b5, but instead queen c8 was a better try here, because there's queen g8 check next, and black king is feeling a little insecure here, and he has nowhere to go, and yeah, he can go to the h6 or h5, but then you can still give checks on h8. Atul, sir, both thought of the cry. Yeah, I know, but I don't see any way to maximize this board. This is in a chess.com report that was written on this event, so I don't see the way to maximize this board. Okay, anyway, here goes queen b5, and then after queen e4, here it's just game over now. There are no checks against the black king, because if the queen was on c8, he could have given a check on g8, but now there is no check, and there's a checkmate coming on g2 there, right? The queen is coming to g2, and it's going to be a checkmate. So it's very difficult. And yeah, if you try to play rook g1 here, then there is queen f3 checkmate, and if you try to play queen f1, then there is queen e3 checkmate. So it's a forced checkmate, unless white gives up his queen by playing something like queen takes d3 or something like that. Can play f5 here, f5 check, but then queen takes f5 check, king goes to g1, and then queen f3 again. Again, it's going to be a forced checkmate. So yeah, this was just game over. So it's a very nice game by Samuel Savian. He played a very, I think, yeah, this was all part of his preparation in the Nimzo Indian, but it was a very nice game. Okay, so we'll see this game as well. So in this game, Sam Savian is white and Alexis Arana is black. So let's see how the game started here. Okay, it's an English opening, and it is 4 knights variation in the English opening. Okay, so knight d4 is a well-known variation in this 4 knights. So if white tries to take on e5, then he runs into an opening trap. So after knight takes e5, there is queen e7 here. Okay, after queen e7, the knight has to move away, right? If you try to play f4, he can always play d6 and kick the knight away. So if you move the knight back to d3 or knight to f3, he's just going to play knight takes f3. If you play to the knight to f3, or if knight d3, then just knight f3 check, and it's a checkmate, right? Because of this pin along the e file, the e2 pawn cannot move. It cannot capture the knight on f3, and it's going to be a checkmate. So this is a well-known trap. So white just continues with bishop g2, knight takes, bishop c5. Okay, just normal moves. Knight a4. So yeah, white wants to play d4 here, which is quite natural here, and he cannot do that unless he attacks this bishop and force him to move away from c5. Or the other way is to play e3 and d4. Some people don't like to play e3 and d4 in this line. So what they do is they'll immediately attack the bishop before he can play a move like a6 and make way for the bishop to a7. So then knight a4, bishop goes to e7. So if you put your bishop on b6, white is just going to take the bishop and then continue with d4, right? So again, that's not something black wants here. So it just goes bishop e7, and after d4 goes d6. Devraj is saying some background noise coming. I know Devraj, a few others also mentioned that, but I don't hear anything else here other than my voice. I have even switched off my fan here, so I don't know from where it is coming. But I'm sorry about it. I'll try to resolve it before my next session. So yeah, d4, d6, knight c3, c6, bishop g2, all just normal moves, queen b6, and then d5. So d5 is an interesting move. So white wants to take on c6 and start exploiting this weakness on d6, because these pawns are hanging pawns in the center. And just a second. Yeah, they are just saying it's with the mic. I don't know why. Anyway, so continuing, white goes d5, and after bishop g4, plays h3, bishop h5, and now queen a4. It's very interesting. He could have taken on c6, but then white is just waiting here. So if he takes, then b takes c6, and it feels too committal here, because then he can just continue with rook c8, rook f8, and go with d5. Okay, and so queen a4, and so he's threatening to take this pawn on c6. He goes rook f c8. He has to defend that pawn. Now white goes e4, so reinforcing the center and also planning to put the bishop on e3. Maybe not immediately, because the pawn on b2 is hanging, right? So the pawn on b2 is hanging, so it's not easy for white to do that. And he goes c takes d5, a6, queen a3. Now white is planning to put his bishop on e3, bishop e3, queen d8. So if black plays knight c5 here, then he just gets into this bad pin. So white just continues with b4, and he wins that knight, right? So goes queen d8, okay, c1, knight c5, b4, knight d3, rook cd1. So this is very interesting. So by playing knight e3, he had attacked this rook, but the idea is this knight on d3 is actually, it's trapped. It cannot escape anywhere. It is trapped, and white wants to attack this. I mean, if you give him time, black is going to play a5 and try to vacate this square, vacate this b5, b4 or c5 square for the knight. But there is rook cd1 here. Now you are immediately attacking this knight. You are giving up the rook for the bishop. You are going for exchange sacrifice, but immediately you are getting that knight there. So it's basically a trade of 2 minor pieces for the rook, which is very beneficial for white in this case. And he only has 1 extra pawn if he takes on b4 here. So that is not sufficient. So queen takes b5, f4, bishop h6. So white wants to maintain this pin. K1 takes, queen h4. That's very interesting. So he's attacking both the rook on e1 and the pawn on f4. Looks very risky actually. Maybe it was not, maybe it was not safe for white to go for this f4 move here, because you already have open files on the queen side, and if you try to open another front on the king side, it will be very dangerous. So here e takes, queen h4, bishop f2. I think he could have played a knight e2 here. It looks fine. Okay, maybe knight e2. The problem with knight e2 is black will play rook c4 and try to take the pawn on e4 there. That's the idea. So maybe that is what white wanted to avoid. So he just gives up this f4 pawn, plus bishop f2, takes, knight e2. Raunak is asking why bishop f1. Wait, let me just go back. Bishop f1. See, Raunak, white, by playing b5, black was actually threatening to put his rook on c4, right? And then he'll double the rooks and he'll start attacking along the c5. The rooks will penetrate into the second rank there. It will come to c2, and that will cause a lot of problems for white there. So, and also the bishop on g2 is not doing anything there, right? It's not serving any purpose. So that's why he puts his bishop on f1 and tries to guard the c4 square. So going back to that position, so black takes on f4. Now knight e2, queen goes to f6, knight d4. Now the knight is a bit, he's trying to regroup the knight here. So it can next go to either f5 or to c6. And after bishop f4, plays queen b3. Very interesting. So it goes bishop d2, rook d1, rook c3. Yeah. Now it looks like, black is taking control of this game. Maybe queen b3 was not at all required here because it allowed this bishop d2 and rook c3 business. Maybe it was better to go with probably knight c6. No, but there is one problem here with knight c6 or any other move. The idea is black is actually threatening to play queen g5 check next and play bishop d2. Right? Once the bishop comes to d2, there is, both the queen and rook are attacked. So it's a double attack, and white will have to give up the other rook as well. So that's the reason he played queen b3. But still, I don't feel that that was the best move. But anyway, queen b3, bishop d2, and then rook comes to c3, queen b2, and yeah, this is a very nice move from black. Bishop e3. So bishop pair is always very dangerous. Okay, so it is better for the defending side, in this case black, to exchange one of the bishops. So then his play becomes even easier. Then playing against bishop and knight is easier than playing against two bishops. So it will be easy for rook to outmaneuver them. So that's why he goes for this exchange. And now you cannot take this rook on c3 because queen takes the bishop on f2, king moves to h1, and then queen g1 is a checkmate, right? So he goes a knight f5. He wants to block the queen. Now he plays this very interesting bishop c5. So black would have just taken on f2, but then white continues with queen takes f2 there. So instead he is going for this waiting game. He's just waiting. He plays bishop c5. And now if you take on c5, there's actually a trap here. If you take on c5, that is actually rook g3 check. That's the idea. And when you take the rook, there is queen takes queen. This queen on b2 is sitting unprotected. So it's hanging there. So rook g3 check is the next immediate threat. Goes queen d2 and g6. So bishop takes, goes with rook takes. So pawn takes is not at all advised for black here because this pawn on d5 becomes a passer pawn and adds to the trouble for black. So it goes rook takes c5, knight check, knight g4, and he goes queen d4 check here in this position. But instead of queen d4 check, I think e5 would have been a better try. The idea is simple. You want to create this pass pawn because till now white does not, other than the the material he has, the bishop and knight against rook, he does not have any other advantage. So what the least he could do is he could try to create a pass pawn here. If he creates a pass pawn, then knight and bishop can try to coordinate with the pawn and create a lot of threats. And also it would open the position a little bit and make it easy for white. So it would have been better to do that, but yeah, let's see what happens after e5. Rook a c8, and one more thing. So if black plays d takes e5 in this position, white cannot go knight takes e5, because of queen g3 check there. So either you move the king or you play bishop g2, whatever, then black will just take the knight. So yeah, that's the trap there, but that is not what white has planned here. So after d takes e5, he's actually going to play d6. He's going to play d6 and d7. He's just going to keep pushing that pawn. So rook a c8, then e takes d6, queen check, bishop g2, queen takes d6. So if black plays rook c2 here, thinking that queen moves and I'm going to do a checkmate on g2, there is actually queen d4 check. So there is no checkmate on g2, but instead black will get mated there. Queen d4 check, king g8, then the knight comes to h6, knight h6 check, king goes to f8, and then queen h8 is a checkmate. So that's the idea. So rook c2 is not possible, and this pawn on d6 is actually controlling the e7 square, which prevents the black king from escaping. So he has to just take this pawn and rook f1, and this position is already looking completely better for white here because there are a lot of threats here. The queen is coming to h6 here immediately. Queen h6 check and knight f6 would result in a forced mate, and black will have to give up his queen. And other than that, the queen is also coming to d4 here. Queen d4 check is also equally powerful. So yeah, this is what would have happened. So e5 was actually, a good try at getting a decisive position. Uh, Chessman says today 150 rupees just because of you people who have all highly improved my chess. Thanks a lot, Unacademy. So, thank you, Chessman. It's good that you have won some money. So keep attending all the sessions. You'll learn more. So, Koushik Joshi, there's some background noise coming, sir. Can you please check? I don't know, Kaustubh. There's some issue I think with my microphone or something. I'll get it sorted before the next session. So please bear with me. Today I don't know why that's happening because I have muted all other sound. There is no other sound actually other than my voice here. But there must be some technical glitch. I'll get it sorted for my next session. So please don't worry. Just bear with me today. So anyway, uh, Savian played queen d4 check here, and black played f6. Now after f6, there is no e5 here. There is no e5 because both the pawn on f6 and d6 they are covering the e5 square, and the pawn on f6 is guarded by the queen on h4. So looks like black's position is back in control. Goes bishop g2, rook c8, rook f1, rook c1. So black wants to exchange the rooks because white was trying to mount the pressure on the f6 pawn. So c1, exchange. This position is still okay for white here. He can still try to hold the position, but let's see what happened. And black has this very powerful outside pass pawn here. The b and a pawns, they are very powerful. Goes queen b6, check, king h1. So bishop g2 is not possible here. If white plays bishop g2, then there's rook c2, and it's just game over because you cannot defend against this mating threat. So king h1, and here black played rook c2, but actually a better move was to play rook c1 here, pinning the bishop on f1. And let's say he takes this pawn on b4, then you take this pawn on h3. So queen check, king goes to h6, queen takes a6, then queen h4. Now white king is completely exposed here. He doesn't have any pawns to cover himself, and the bishop and knight, they are not enough. And now the queen is actually coming to f2 next, or maybe not immediately because there is knight g4 check and there is a fork. But it is also possible for black to play g5 g4, and also there is rook c2 coming up. Because of the spin along the h file, the knight is pinned here, so there is rook c2 coming, and there is a mating threat. So that was the idea. So this was a better alternative, but still I think even rook c2 should be okay. So he plays rook c2, and after queen a7 check, goes king h6, knight g4 check, and king g5, queen d4. So they were both in a time scramble here, so they had very little time and they were just playing very fast. But instead of queen d4, could have gone with queen takes h7. Queen takes h7 with the idea queen h6 checkmate. But then black would play queen f3 check, king g1, king f4. This is very important. And now if white plays queen h6 check, there is king g3. The king just comes into white's camp, and it is white who is going to get checkmated there. But instead of queen h6 check, there is actually queen e7, and there is no way for black to give a checkmate against the white king. And if he plays king g3, you can just take the pawn on d6 there with a check. So black would have been forced to go for a perpetual check with queen g3 check and queen f3 check, because the bishop and the knight, they are doing a great job. They are covering all the important square where black can deliver a checkmate. So black has nothing better than to go for a perpetual check. But obviously in the time trouble, this is very difficult to find out. So white just played queen d4 here, and here black played queen f3 check. He made one repetition and then played queen f4, attacking the bishop on f1. So if white continues king g1 here, and then black can just play h5, kicking this knight away from g4. And when the knight moves away from g4, there is queen h2 checkmate. So that's the idea. And if he plays knight to f2, there is always queen g3 check back, and the rook can come to c1. So there are a lot of threats there. So he goes queen d1, and after rook c1, he is forcefully losing the bishop here. So he played h4 check, takes, and then he played queen d3, but this is already lost. So queen takes f1, and white resigned in this position. So this was a very, very nice victory for Alexis Arana. So he went on to win the game. He went on to win the game. There were other important other games as well, but I think these were the most interesting games there. So, and yeah, so there is a lot of other games that you can see from the chess.com website. Yeah, this is very interesting. So in this chart you can see, so Sarana won against Sabian, and next his match is against Sean Jeffrey, who is who is a 2700 grandmaster and a very strong contender for the JSCC title. So on the left side you have Nihal Sarin, our Indian prodigy grandmaster, who is playing against Haik Martirosyan. So that is also going to be a very interesting game. I think we have that match today or tomorrow probably. So the winner from Nihal and Haik is going to play against the winner from Sean Jeffrey and Alexis Arana in the finals, and they are going to compete for the JSCC title. So this is a very interesting event, because they are playing in all three important time formats: 5+1, 3+1, and 1+1, and it measures their ability to play fast and also play a bit slowly. So that is all about this event, and I think apart from this event, there are a lot of others are also going on, but these are the main ones. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments. We can discuss. This is all actually I wanted to show you in this session. You have any questions? So in the coming sessions, we will also try to cover more of the recent events, JSCC or the Bantamweight Cup or other popular events. So for today, this is all I wanted to share with you. But if you have any questions, do put them in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Unacademy. So I've put it in my screen there. You can see the code as well. You can use my code Girish95 to get 10% discount for the Unacademy subscription. So with this subscription, you will have a lot of benefits. You will get access to teachings from a lot of grandmasters, a lot of Indian grandmasters. There's a Vishayan teaching there, Vidit Gujarati is teaching there, and a lot of other grandmasters are teaching in that platform. So you will have access to all those courses, all those classes. So do subscribe, and well, that is all for today. And if you have no questions, I'll say goodbye. Nothing. Raunak Biswas says covering recent online events, tournaments is a great idea. You may even think of covering. Yeah, that's the idea, Raunak. So that's what I have planned. So we want to cover a lot of interesting events. I'm also planning to cover the Norwegians, that is starting from tomorrow. You have big names like Magnus Carlsen, Anish Giri, Fabiano Caruana. So all these top players are playing in that event. So we'll try to cover all these big events and give you an idea of what's happening there. So that's the idea. Covering interesting games from titles. Even that is possible. We have to do live stream for that, for Title Tuesday, because there's going to be a lot of games there. So but we can try to cover as many games as possible, all the top games. So yes, that is also in the pipeline. Anyway, thanks for joining today. I hope you all enjoyed this session. Going through some interesting games from the JSCC and the Grand Swiss tournament that we had yesterday. So I hope you all tune into my next session, and don't forget to subscribe to Unacademy. So yeah, anyway, bye and have a good night.